winning 6 world titles and held the world #1 ranking for 7 consecutive seasons. First player to make an officially recognised maximum break in a professional competition. Named BBC Sports Personality of the Year in 1988 and remains the only snooker player ever to win the award. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Davis, OBE.
Thank you.
How you doing, Steve?
Well, I mean, you've just reminded me of the fact that I was once a personality. I'm like, who would have thought that? I mean, there is the most boring player of the 80s, then became a personality. Just a shock to the system, wasn't it? And you know, shows you, I think, how popular snooker must have been back then that I got Sports Personality of the Year. I beat, you know, well, okay, Red Rum and Torval and Dean were the other two in the running, so.
Done well to beat Red Rum. It's you touch on those achievements. It's fantastic to kind of hear them, I guess.
Yeah. What I do think though is that, you know, there's nothing like being in the right place at the right time, because who would have thought that a pastime, which it is for most people, the same as all sports, as they are called, are pastimes for most people, then became a nationwide phenomenon in the 80s and became a recognised sport, and every one of the players, winners and losers, became household names. Just nobody could have predicted it, all down to David Attenborough, who signed off the deal for Pot Black back in 69, I think 70. Without him at the helm of BBC, they may not have decided that snooker was used for colour purposes, for showing off the new colour TV. Next minute, snooker was getting popular in the 70s. Pot Black became sort of this thing that everybody watched, a weekly frame of snooker. And then I was ideally placed when the game took off, when BBC decided to show it Wimbledon style, 2 weeks, the whole of the World Championship in 79. And I just turned professional 78, and then 2 years later I was world champion and dominated the game.
Yeah.
You know, timing is everything.
Perfect, and a little bit of knowledge with David Attenborough there. Thank you for that. We won't go too far throughout the interview on historical standpoints, but I want to go a little bit further back than that, where, if I may, where you started the game around 12 years of age, I understand, playing at your local working man's club with your father. What was the path from hobby to feeling a talent to kicking on to competitive snooker?
Yeah, it always starts as a hobby. I can't believe anybody ever started with a view to it becoming a profession. Even the kid who dreams of being a football player and being a pro, then all of a sudden, once they start playing, they never know it's going to go that distance. I started entering junior events. I sort of won the London area. Then you started going further afield, and you started to realise where you were in the hierarchy of your peers. And even though I didn't win the most significant amateur event once I'd reached 18, which was the English Amateur Championship, which was like considered to be the stepping stone to turning professional, I was being tipped for being a top professional, even though I hadn't really even thought about it. And I only actually turned professional in my own mind so I could play better players. You know, madness to think about it. There was not much money in the game. I won the UK Championship in 1980, my first professional win. Prize money was £6,000. And it just so happened that Barry Hearn had a car that he was selling for £6,000. So not only did he win more money from gambling on me in the event, he also nicked the money and sold me some metal.
Who would have thought it from Barry?
It's just wonderful, you know, it's just sand to the Arabs.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so when did it dawn on me that I'd gone on from being a hobby to a profession? When I was starting to knock on the doors of being professional, and everybody was sort of, you know, the magazines were writing about me, and it just dawned on me that this was becoming something that wasn't just a hobby, wasn't even just an obsession. It had gone even further than an obsession, and I think it has to. It's to the next level that you need to be to get to professional level. Not even obsession is good enough.
I think that's a lesson for many people with sporting aspirations. At your second World Snooker Championship. You had a quarter-final exit to Alex Higgins. What did that run do for your confidence in the game, and how did it evolve you as a player that would go on to be so competitive in future tournaments?
Yeah, you turn professional, and then all of a sudden the first thing that happened when I turned professional was I struggled initially because I felt like I had to up my game. So I tried too hard. That's how I'd view it now. And that's not how it works. You just have to play and be yourself. So it took a little while before I started to settle down into my own skin as a professional. And then my first big, I'll use the word break. All right, my first big break was beating the then world champion, Terry Griffiths, in the second round, I think, or the first, or whatever it was, of the world championship. And then TV took notice. And I remember being a film crew walking with me to get my shirt dry cleaned, because obviously I was playing in the next round. I probably only had one shirt with me, one nice shirt. So they filmed me going down to the dry cleaners. I mean, yeah, I thought I'd made it. That was the nth degree of making it. And then I lost to Alex Higgins in a close fought match. Great player, but that was me hooked on. I want more of this. And that's the other thing that happens. It's great if you're good at something, because more attention's on you. And because there's lots of attention on you, it makes it feel good, because everybody loves to talk about themselves and everybody likes to be noticed. So as a kid coming through, even though I was shy and really sort of like, wouldn't say anything to anybody, once I had a cue in my hand, people were noticing me. Obviously I wanted to play more of that. Lovely. Same thing applied at professional level. The next minute it's focusing in my mind massively on the job in hand. So I then started to take it even more professionally, more practice, more hours. It just went from strength to strength. And the worst thing is, if it doesn't happen, then you hit a brick wall. But I kept improving. And that's something you don't know until it happens. You can't predict you're going to be world champion anything, because you don't know you're going to keep on improving.
I guess you can't predict where the ceiling's going to come as well.
Yeah, impossible to do, because you're around people that are similar standard and may have more natural talent sometimes, but that's not necessarily enough. You need to have a work ethic, and you also need to have the temperament to go with it on the big stage. And so predicting who's going to be the best, impossible. It's all very, in hindsight, you go, oh yeah, in the snooker world, oh yeah, Ronnie was always going to be great. Judd Trump was always going to be great. Not if they didn't have great match temperament. So yeah, I had that, and I didn't stop improving my accuracy. But I would never have been considered to be one of the ones that was gifted. But to be quite honest, everybody you see in the top echelon of any sport is gifted. It's just some look less gifted than others, but they're all 0.01% gifted in the world.
1981 brought the first of 6 world titles. How confident were you going into the tournament, and what did the win mean to you?
My confidence level was going through the roof at that time, because I'd won in that season the UK Championship, and I'd beaten Alex Higgins by a ridiculous scoreline. Didn't just beat him, just annihilated him, and all of a sudden I was the best thing since sliced bread in the game. And there was obviously pressure in a way that I was expected to win the World Championship. I was the favourite, but I don't remember feeling the heat of that, which can sometimes be way heavily on your shoulders. So I'd had experience at the World Championship before. I'd had a good run into it in the events. I'd won a lot. I think I'd won quite a number of the events, although there wasn't that many compared to now. And it was never a foregone conclusion. But I'd improved enough and learned my trade well enough that I was able to cope with what was needed to last the distance and play the type of players you were coming up against, which were a couple of what you'd call quite exciting players, and a lot of really dogged, hard players from the past, of the likes of Terry Griffiths, Cliff Thorburn, players like that. And beating Cliff Thorburn in the semi-finals and having a bit of an epiphany in the bath before that match, or during that match, can't remember when, laying there in the bath, just sort of soaking,